It seems like everything that Fractal is offering is slowly reaching that endpoint, so to speak, in development, which is actually a good thing because it means they are listening to feedback of all of us. Hi guys, Matthew here and welcome back again to my channel. Here it is, the latest version of the new Meshify series, the Meshify 2. So it basically just lost an S compared to its previous brother, which sounds like not a lot has changed. But of course that's not quite the whole story yet. Actually, I was really excited to receive this chassis because I haven't had a chance to check out its predecessor. So let's first go ahead and put a build in this chassis. Although not a lot has changed design-wise from the outside at first look, we have this big mesh front panel, the top panel has some new angled shapes, while on the side... Wait, what is this? Can it be a storage layout? Yes, that's right, the Meshify 2 gets that famous fractal storage layout option as seen on their other high-tier models like the Vector RS or Define 7, which is something that Fractal points out. And that's actually what the new Meshify 2 is all about, a lot of sort of like hidden but functional upgrades transferred over from the latest iteration of the Define series. Except for that sticks right out, it's quite obvious. There will be 3 colors available, black, white and grey, the last 2 only coming with the tempered glass side panel, while the black one will also have a solid panel option, as well as the darker tempered glass option. I have the light version here, and all of them will run you from $130 to $140 depending on the version. So, Fractal once again decided to take all the best things from their current chassis lineup, plus the feedback and user experience from before, and basically dump that onto the next product. And that's a pretty sound strategy. Right away you can see some of the elements of the Define 7 series, one of them being that we finally have a separated I/O front panel connections with a set of 2 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port, audio in and out jacks, power on and a reset switch, where you can now pull the top or front panel off without worrying you'll rip something right out. That top panel now also covers the whole length of the chassis, the mesh dust filter got separated beneath it, while the top mesh is fixed, and it's much easier to pull it off even with everything else being on the chassis, because now we have this indent on the back instead of a button to grab onto and to pull it up, although I wish it was just a bit more grippy or that the cutout was larger. The biggest change in terms of the panels is at the front, where you don't need to pull the whole panel off anymore in order to get to the dust filter, because the mesh panel itself can now be opened up like a door as it has hinges, so you get access to the dust filter and fans. But the thing is, you cannot do anything with the front dust filter unless you pull the mesh door out, and doing that feels like you're going to break something, as well as being an added step on top of everything, so I'm hoping to see a solution to this in the future, maybe even add magnets for the latch and door mechanism. Of course, you can also choose to pull the front panel off completely from the bottom, and here is where you can also access the bottom dust filter, being it with the panel on or off. Although the dust filter and the front mesh itself do not seem to be different at first glance, the filter is actually less restrictive than the one before, while you can always completely remove it and rely on the mesh of the front panel to do some dust catching. The top fan bracket can again be completely removed for easier and maximal access of the main compartment, especially if you pull the glass side panel off. Speaking of that, the very simple and straightforward latching mechanism for both the left and right side panels is still here. We have a tab that you just pull, pop goes the panel, and that's it. Since we are already here, building in it was the same as in the aforementioned 2. You have a lot of space on your disposal, especially if you don't plan to use this storage layout. You can put up to 285mm wide eATX motherboard, almost half a meter long graphics card if you don't use the front fans, and if you do, you'll be limited to 467mm, which is just a bit below 30mm more compared to the Meshify S2 model. Since we are talking about limitations, maximal CPU cooler height is 185mm, so the same, while the maximal PSU length is 250mm instead of 300mm, but that's with the drive cage in its default position. If you want to, you can move it a bit to the back, or you can just completely remove it and free yourself of not knowing what to do with that cage, in case you don't have any 3.5-inch drives. We also got a removable frame for the power supply, so it's a bit easier to install it in there. I'm really glad to see that they decided to use that additional big plastic panel that completely covers the whole bottom power supply compartment, so you can just tuck everything in there if you're not in the mood for doing cable management.
Oh, come on, who is going to see that? Don't judge me.
Moving up a bit, back here there's a plethora of space to do cable management. Even if you go all in with the cables, there's a total of 5 Velcro straps, plus additional tie-down points, 17 of them to be precise, together with around 30mm of cable routing space. You will also get that tucked-in slim designed fan hub with 3 4-pin and 6 3-pin fan connectors, onto which you can hook up the already pre-installed 3 Dynamics X2 GP14 fans, 2 on the front and 1 on the back. I won't go too much into details with this storage layout configuration, we've seen it all multiple times. If you decide to go for it, you'll get over 10 dedicated positions for the 3.5 or 2.5-inch drives, for which you will get 1 multi-bracket and a total of 6 trays, 4 additional ones come from the bundle. So if you plan to use more drives or need extra brackets for the pump and reservoir, you'll need to purchase a few more. Of course, we have those 2 slots in the drive cage, plus that 1 multi-bracket, so you can put one vertically right next to the motherboard tray on the back, so that's plenty enough to get you going. I personally don't have a need for it, since I generally rely on M.2 SSDs in my build, and for any other big backup storage needs I use this Silverstone super practical hard drive dock, into which I just pop in the hard drive when needed. Another thing you can also purchase and choose to use is a special bracket and PCI Express flex cable for installing the graphics card vertically, for which we have these 2 vertical expansion slots, but you can also choose to push it more towards the motherboard for more space, with another special bracket version for it that uses the existing horizontal expansion slots. Radiator and fan support is basically the same, up to 420mm on the top, that is if you don't use the storage layout, and up to 36mm tall RAM or 360mm on the front. There's some space for a 280mm configuration on the bottom if you decide to ditch the drive cage, so really a lot of good options in terms of that. Custom water cooler builders should have a pretty good time in it. For the temperature testing scenarios, I've had 2 different base setups, one with the front dust filter on and the other one with it being off, while I also used 3 different fan speed configurations: full fan speed, 30% and 60% of fan speed for all chassis fans, while the CPU fan on Noctua's NHU12S Chromax was set at 60% and the RX 5700 Pulse GPU had a default fan curve. Let's first hear how all of this sounds. How good is the Meshify 2 in blocking the noise with that mesh front and without any sound insulation that its other brothers have. Checking out the temperatures, the components do see the benefits between the front dust filter being off, even with the same fan speed of the chassis fans. It's not much, but there is some tangible difference. Since the dynamic X2 GP14 fans are really quiet to begin with, putting them at 60% of their fan speed seems to be ideal noise and performance-wise, especially in terms of the graphics card, where its other crucial parts beside the GPU itself get to be cooled off just a bit more. When you draw the line, what we basically got is the Define 7 chassis with some subtle design and technical upgrades, and most importantly with that big air-sipping, angular-looking mesh goodness on the front, which is why the Meshify 2 and Meshify series in general exist to begin with, to provide more airflow for those who really want or need it. That's it for this time for me. Thank you once again for watching. Please take a second to toss me a thumbs up if you enjoyed my content. That really helps a lot. And if you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe. And if you already are, be sure to press that notification bell down below so you don't miss out on a new video. And until then, catch you later, guys.